You have to embrace fear and failure. It's the only way that extraordinary is made real. Success doesn't happen in the absence of mistakes, in the absence of adversity or headwinds. It happens smack dab in the middle of them. And if you're not making mistakes, you're not being innovative enough, you're not being daring enough, you'll become irrelevant. You only have temporary success. And I think there's a very unique form of confidence that an entrepreneur and a true leader has, and that's the recognition that I'll survive my mistakes.
You've described a lot the influence that your father had on you, that he was someone who reinvented his career many, many times, and that he made an indelible mark on the entrepreneur that you are today. Describe that early influence on you and some of the lessons that he imparted.
He was someone who taught me, and this is core to being an entrepreneur, that if you want something, go get it. And it's not about where you come from, it's about where you decide to go. And he always was someone who felt in charge of his own life. He never complained about his circumstances. He always thought, lucky to be here. If I want to learn something, I crack a book. So I always thought to myself, which I think you have to know, as an entrepreneur, you don't know everything before you get started. You get started in order to know everything. And I always had that. If I wanted to learn something, I cracked a book. If I wanted something, I worked harder and went to go create it.
You went on to attend Stanford Business School, but
Yes.
dropped out to become an entrepreneur to start what became theweddingchannel.com. Describe some of your early mistakes as an entrepreneur and what you learned from them that still fuels you today.
I make mistakes on people, on product, on process, but we all do. I sometimes think business is like playing whack-a-mole, where the second you get something done, another thing crops up, but you're solving problems. That's how you're adding value. It's really just perspective. No one has all the answers. Nobody gets it all right all the time. When I left Wedding Channel, a lot of people thought the most natural thing would be to do it again the Silicon Valley way. But I was 30 and I was married. And at that point in my life, it was about what we were gonna do as a team. And it wasn't just about starting a company. I wanted to start a life, which included my husband's happiness and success, and included wanting to start a family. I learned a lot going to work at Dell as a middle manager, and I also had a lot of work-life balance. And I was able to do this idea on the nights and weekends, and it turned out to be exactly the entrepreneurial hotbed that I needed to be in to reinvent what I wanted to in creating what became Stella & Dot.
You're so passionate about empowering women and giving them opportunities. Where's that drive to do that day in and day out stem from in your life?
I grew up in a very untraditional circumstance. I saw the impact of having a female in the house who didn't feel like she had reached her own potential. And I was raised by a very wonderful and loving single dad, but I definitely thought to myself, I'm not gonna be that woman. I'm gonna call the shots. I'm gonna be financially independent. I'm gonna pursue happiness as an independent person. No doubt that living that is likely where my fierce sense of independence and my fierce belief that that's what all women deserve comes from.
What was the biggest challenge for you early on in terms of navigating both a very intense, exciting business as well as a young family?
I find the single greatest challenge wasn't external factors. It was my own maternal guilt, my own mommy guilt, all the things I self-inflicted. And getting over that, I feel like, was my greatest life accomplishment. Forget the business accomplishment. It was just as a working mother, as a female entrepreneur, it was all the internal voices that said, can you be so ambitious in the work world and be a great mother? Got to a point where I said to my family, okay, your level of service is being downgraded. Good is the new great. I am not going to cook every meal with locally sourced organic food and have the perfect birthday party and run this business. I can't do it all. And it was just coming to a point of, honestly, almost total exhaustion and recognizing that I have all this that should look like success on paper, but I'm gonna rob myself of my own joy because guilt is joy sucking. And you've got to get rid of that to make more room for kicking ass and happy in your life.
If you were to reflect back and write a letter to yourself of 20 years ago, what advice would you give yourself at that point in time?
I wish I could live my 20s with the wisdom and the outlook I have in my 40s. The 40s is a real impress yourself decade. You care about other people more, but you care less what they think of you. And if I could go to my 20-year-old self and say, it's okay This one thing doesn't define you. This one setback doesn't define you. You're bigger than this. You're stronger than this. Your impact will be longer than this. And don't sweat it so much, what other people think. You've got this. The biggest message that I have for women is that there was never a time in my life where I thought, I can do anything a man can do. I have always just thought, I can do anything. If you don't see your gender as an issue, other people are less likely to. Doesn't mean that that's fair, doesn't mean that it's true. But all I'm saying is that when it comes to you, you need to believe beyond reason. You need to see your differences not as barriers, but as your opportunities to stand out, to be different. And it'll just make you stronger, because will you face adversity or obstacles because you're a female? Sure, but get used to it, because as an entrepreneur, it's just one of the many in the whack-a-mole of obstacles that you'll have to overcome. So while the world has to make female entrepreneurship more accessible, more equal, more doable, you right now in this moment simply need to believe that it is not an issue and you need to just keep going.